Hi, welcome to Thought of the Day with Bailey, where we are exploring this question: what does following Jesus in the state of the coronavirus pandemic look like? Today, I wanted to bring us back to a word that has been spoken over us as a church, and that is a word of fallow. For those of you who don't know, Liz and John Edwards brought this word to the leadership team, and they just sensed that God was calling us into a season of fallow. And fallow ground is an area of land that is usually used for crops and farming, but for a season it's left bare. There's nothing planted there, and this is needed because the soil loses its nutrients as it's farmed every single season. And so whenever it's left bare, nutrients are replenished and it becomes sustainable again for healthy plant growth in future seasons. So we as a church have been in fallow. We haven't had any midweek discipleship groups meeting, and we've been meeting on Tuesdays for prayer and worship nights, which don't have much structure to them, and we really just kind of show up and ask God what He wants to do. Like, what does He want to say? What nutrients does He want to replenish? And so, if you were there, you know that those were really sweet times, but unfortunately, those have been canceled due to the coronavirus. And now we are doing church basically completely online and virtually. And this is definitely different, and things have been changing, but I still think this word of fallow is relevant. In fact, I would actually say we're in an intensified fallow season. Things that we didn't know could be shut or closed down are. And I wonder, how can we press into this more? How can we just kind of honor this word of fallow? What does it look like to be fallow when we're self-isolated and in lockdown? I think we're in big steps to being fallow. But over the past few weeks, I've been thinking and praying and have come up with a few practices for us to possibly integrate into our rules of life, which if you missed the last video, go catch up on that one and you'll know what a rule of life is. But I've thought of a few practices for how to fallow. And so the first practice for you is solitude. Now, you might practice solitude every day, and you might have done it for years, or maybe you've never even heard of it. And I would love to do a whole teaching on solitude and why we should do it and the goodness that can come from it, but I recognize this is a short video, so I'll recommend a book to you instead. So I've been reading Reaching Out by Henry Nouwen, which apparently I say his name wrong, but I don't know how to say it correctly, so sorry about that. But Reaching Out is a great read for right now. It's a great read for any time, but especially for right now. And so the first third of this book talks about the movement from loneliness to solitude. And most authors are in spiritual formations usually talk about a movement from loneliness to solitude. And really, it's essential for any follower of Jesus, because solitude is much more about a solitude of heart rather than just your physical surrounding. Although we practice solitude in a quiet place, it's a lot more about your content heart, that you are satisfied in God's love, that you don't need to manipulate people for love or approval or attention, but that you come to be satisfied in God's love in your own heart in a quiet place. And so solitude is something that we all need as followers of Jesus, but I would assume that right now we're even more susceptible to loneliness than we are in any other season, which we are all susceptible to loneliness. We all feel it. It is part of the human condition. But it's not a hopeless part of the human condition. It's a part of the human condition that is an opportunity for solitude, for us to press in to the presence and love of God and just sit and be with Him, to sit and listen to see if He has anything to say or anything to heal in us or any call to reveal to us. And so solitude is a practice we need in order to live in community well. Henry Nouwen says it like this. He says, "Without the solitude of heart, the intimacy of friendship, marriage, and community life cannot be creative. Without the solitude of heart, our relationships with others easily become needy and greedy, sticky and clinging, dependent and sentimental, exploitative and parasitic. Because without the solitude of heart, we cannot experience others as different from ourselves, but only as people who can be used for the fulfillment of our own often hidden needs." That is so good. It's convicting, but so good. And so we see that if we're going to love well, and if we're going to be people of love rather than people of manipulation, we have to first be content, and we have to first experience the love of God that satisfies our soul. And so this is also a practice that we see modeled in the life of Jesus, and we're actually in Lent right now, which is remembering Jesus' 40-day fast in the wilderness, which is a 40 days of solitude that kickstarts Jesus' ministry. And so we see solitude is something that Jesus builds regularly into his rhythm. We see him retreat after he performs miracles, but we also see him retreat like in Lent or before going to the cross. We see him retreat before ministry and after ministry. And so if Jesus built it into his regular rhythm, I would say it's safe to say that we should do that too. So what do we do? Well, if you already practice solitude, keep it up. Maybe in this season you have some extra time, so maybe you could add an extended period of solitude in your week. But for those of you who are already practicing solitude, keep pressing into it. For those of you who used to practice solitude but you just haven't in a while, here is your encouragement and challenge to make it part of your regular daily rhythm again. But for those of you who have never practiced, I have two options for you to start with. One, you could start with 5 minutes every day. You can maybe work your way up to 30 minutes, but don't worry about getting to 30 minutes. The whole point of the practice is just to experience the love of God, and that is the thing that's going to transform you, not the actual 30 minutes necessarily that you're able to sit still for. You could even be a desert father. You could go be a hermit and live a life of quiet but never actually experience solitude, because remember, it's about your state of heart. So I recommend starting with 5 minutes just because that's an attainable goal, and you just sit and find some quiet place. I actually prefer the beach. I really miss the beach, so go for me. But maybe you want to sit in your room or your bathroom or a closet or go somewhere else outside, or sit in your car. But take 5 minutes to acknowledge God's presence, acknowledge the love between the Father, Son, and Spirit, and know that you are in the presence of God and his love for you is real, and just sit and listen for 5 minutes. And as you do this, you may not see fruit right away, but you will eventually start to see fruit. This is so beneficial and so good for other relationships. And I hope that as you're maybe getting on each other's nerves in whatever home you're living in, that this will be a practice that will help maybe ease some tension and help us become people of love. Or if you'd rather do option B is to pick 1 or 2 hours a week that you could practice solitude. So when could you maybe get away for an hour or two? And just, again, you're just being quiet, acknowledging God's presence, acknowledging the love between the Trinity, and knowing that you are fully loved. And you sit and you listen and you be filled and be content and be healed. So I hope that you all are integrating solitude into your daily rhythms. Comment below just how that's going for you, or if it's difficult. Let's be community and practice this together. It's much easier, I find, to practice this with other people. Not that you're practicing with other people, because solitude is about being alone, but to have accountability is so key. So comment below how you're doing, and I'll see you Friday with another practice. All right, bye-bye.